Yes. All right, got it. Well, I'm going to miss Mark. I tell you what, Monique, he's really helped me walk through a lot of this stuff. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody. We're going to be having our little get together, at least for a while. And as long as we still, have a few folks turning out, I'm going to try to be sharing what I think is just incredible information that's really going to be helpful on the topics that we're speaking about. Um, Keep in mind that I'll try to announce the next topic at the beginning of the one that we're in. And next month, we'll be talking about immunity because, we're going to be in December of 2023 and we want to, have some ideas, but it's not going to be just, okay, you take so much echinacea or golden seal or something like that. We're going to be talking about things to do with people that maybe have what they call long COVID. And there's some real interesting things that can be done that way. But tonight we want to really start out by talking about the human heart. Now, the human heart is really interesting because when we think of the heart, we think of, and something that's shaped like this little pendant, and little heart shaped and that kind of thing. And we have a physical heart, we know that. But energetically speaking, our soul has its counterpart, and so does our spirit. Well, what happens if we're wounded in our soul? Are we to think that maybe something isn't spilling over into the physical heart? And the answer to that is we know, and because I know pretty much everybody that's on tonight, and that a person can have what they call a broken heart. And, hopefully it's not to the point where they just expire and transition to heaven, even though a lot of people will at some point. We hope that we're in the generation that maybe we'll see some longevity, right, Rachel? So, but having said that, there are things that people need to understand about the physical heart, and nutrients are vital for the physical heart. So if you've got your notepads ready, there are several things that can be done. First of all, on my testing, and many of you who are on tonight have had me test you, but and again, I don't know how good this is going to show. I'm going to put it right in front of my face and see it now. It's not working. That's because of my silly background. Well, anyway, you've had the test done, and you know that the top area on the left-hand corner of my test sheet concerns, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things that relate to the human heart, including whether a person has clogged veins or arteries. And the first thing we do when we test is we find out, okay, is your heart energetically where it's supposed to be? And when I do the muscle testing, it should pulse out as a 12. Now, if it goes over 12, that usually means there's some kind of an infection in the body and the heart's working harder. If I tested somebody while they were in AFib and they had like a 220 heart rate, Lord forbid, they might be a 20, but normally it's 12. So most of the folks, when I test them, if it's less than 12, something is going to need some nurturing. Almost everybody these days has a little bit of stress somewhere. So one of the first things we do is we check for adrenal function. Well, when it comes to adrenal function, and I'm hoping that these will show tonight, if I put it in front of my face, there we go. Some of you are familiar with this. These are the adrenal caps, right? Okay, such as you can see them. Well, I like the Solar Ray brand, and there's others that cost a lot more that are maybe slightly more effective, but they cost an awful lot more. So people, if they ask me, hey, is there another option? Well, I can send you to Biotics. I can send you to Standard Process. I'm sure there's Garden of Life probably has something. Either way, what we want to do is have a composite of different things from licorice to raw adrenal that are in there that are going to nurture and heal the adrenal glands. Well, that's one component. There's actually 4 different aspects to the human thyroid. There is the need for either raw thyroid glandular, or if the gland itself is okay, it might need some form of iodine. And there's different ways to do that. So either you need to build it up like you would the adrenals with the glandular, or you need some form of iodine. The other thing is that there's what they call a T3. There's actually another one called T1 that has something to do with hydration and brain function. But I generally don't use that one because I don't run into that very often with most folks. But if you have a problem with T3, you probably have a spare tire around the middle. So that's in, so you see, like you go to GNC and you get their like power stuff, and it always says T3 thyroid on it because they know that that relates to metabolism. Well, as we're going through these, if let's say somebody starts out as a 3 when they should have been a 12, we find the adrenals are operating subpar. So I suggest maybe 3 adrenal caps a day, but it only goes from a 3 to maybe a 7. But then we find out that one of the thyroid factors is involved. Let's say the T3, need a couple of those a day, and then all of a sudden it's at a 12. Now, when it comes to nutrition, this is maybe one of the hardest things, even though I tell folks that it's really hard for all of us to comprehend. What I really do, folks, is I try to find things that should, in a perfect world, be in your diet, but they're not. If they're not, your body's going to be in a deficiency syndrome. So I'm not trying to treat diseases. I'm not trying to cure things. But your body's own electromagnetic energy field through your voice is telling me that your thyroid needs a little bit of supplementation, or your adrenals need a little bit of supplementation. And so that's when I do a program on somebody, it's to basically supplement what should be in our food but isn't. Now, I know I'm really preaching to the choir here tonight. However, when I think about the quality of nutrients that were in food back in the 50s and 60s compared to what's in our food today, somebody said that if you were to take a cup of spinach, which I can handle spinach in a salad, but cooked spinach, I got burnt out when I was about 5, and I still today, it's like, remember cream spinach? Anyway, if you had a cup, say in 1960, it would take over 50 cups today to equal that 1 cup. And I'm sure that that's true with almost anything else that we run across, okay? Now, back in those days, guys and gals, we probably even remember that our bread used to mold if we left it out for a couple of days. Remember when we were kids? Nowadays, I mean, I remember a guy that that he mistakenly put a McDonald's hamburger in his winter coat, and then it turned warm, and he found it the next, that fall, like 4 or 5 months later, 6 months later, and it looked so good, like he could have ate it, including the burger. So if there's no mold on the bread, if the cheese hasn't molded, and the burger is cold but looks like it could be thrown in the microwave, does that even classify as food anymore? I'm really wondering. So when we go ahead and try to support you or anyone with specific nutrition, I'm not shotgunning this and say, well, okay, today Cece, her voice sounds a little weak, so you didn't see the wink behind my glasses, Cece, but let's throw 5 adrenal capsules at her today. No, I'm doing a specific test to know that if that's what she needs and the number that she needs, that's going to bring her to a balance. But folks, we lock into this for a minimum of 3 months, and there's certain things that I've been taking for 30 years. So until we get that next revelation from heaven on how to get that manna, which I'm looking forward to that. I mean, we've got to believe that it's coming, right? Why are we doing what we're doing? In fact, if y'all could have been a fly on the wall every once in a while after the two, and he'll probably see this, and he's such a gracious man, but Dr. Ron will call me once in a while and ask me how I'm doing. I appreciate that. And so I said, Dr. Ron, I said, sometimes I say stuff and sometimes I don't in the meetings and that. And I said, but I'm sitting there the other night and I'm thinking, we rightly so need to be working on our realms and the different things that are affecting us, and working through the negative spiritual attachments on all levels. But then what? What does then what look like? I said, somebody somewhere along the way has to really start dangling that wonderful carrot, and this is a real deal, out in front and say, okay, the reason we're working so hard in cutting our teeth, which that part I have in my book on these things, is so that we'll walk into bona fide, full-fledged sonship. Now, what is that going to look like? Well, folks, at some point, we have to start transitioning because there's not going to be a lot of trash left to take out. When we get to that point, what does the full positive start looking like? See, that's the thing that we need to be focusing on. So whether it comes to the nutritional thing, and that's why I'll have these as long as the need is there, what a lot of the things that we're doing are transitional. Hopefully, we'll all be such great people of faith and connection with the Father and Son and Holy Spirit that somebody will just call you, you'll pray for them, and you'll be better than one of those med beds that so many people are talking about. Just your voice, boom, everything's set the way that it should be, but not just back to Adam, fully seated in the second Adam, Christ Jesus. That's where we're headed. And of course, if most people here is talking this way, they're going to say, oh my goodness. Well, you know what? I lived the intellectual part of Christianity for a long time with a few gifts of the Holy Spirit thrown in. And if we look around and we're really, really honest, I don't think we've done that good of a job. It's going to take people like those early apostles, in some respects, even greater, because they're up there to help us out in the cloud of witnesses, and the Savior himself is directing things. But it's going to affect every part of our life. Well, one of the things that I found that is really, really important is that sometimes people can have a fall. Now, how many of you heard Dr. Ron talk about like a trip and a fall, and then all of a sudden the enemy uses that as some kind of an open door? Okay. Well, I knew a pastor one time. He raised cattle and he had one of his bulls get ornery. How he survived, I don't know, but his bull picked him up and flung him, I don't know how many feet in the air. He said 12, 13 feet in the air, and then he landed on his back, but he'd never been right after that. And physically, the doctors couldn't find anything wrong. Well, I tested and tested, and finally I found out that he had what they call heart shock that usually comes from a fall. Well, there's a product that one company called Standard Process has that's called Cardio Plus. Well, he needed about 15 a day for 3 months. And he said after the first week, he felt like he was almost normal. Now, his symptoms were that his heart was a little bit erratic, but that he just didn't feel like himself. Isn't that kind of a strange way to say it? Well, he got on this stuff and it kind of shocked it back into shape. There's another herb that is what they call an Ayurvedic herb. I don't always say that right, but it's called Arjuna, Arjuna. Now, I haven't been able to swallow things for a long time. When I say swallow things, I mean like big horse pills. So I chew pretty much everything, and I can tell you, I know what almost everything tastes like. And Arjuna is from the bark of a tree, and you know what it tastes like? I think bark of a tree. So, but they're little tablets about half the size of this cough drop that I'm going to take because I drank coffee and now, of course, my throat's dry. And that is really, really good. You take about 3 to 6 of those a day. I wouldn't take them probably more than a couple of months at a time. But if you feel like maybe for any reason that the heart tissue just needs revitalization, those two products, the Standard Process, Cardio Plus, or Arjuna, are amongst the top things on the entire planet that you could possibly take that would help that. And so if you ran into somebody that had been under a lot of stress, and in your ministry time, you kind of think that maybe they've got a broken heart or kind of leaning that direction, there wouldn't be anything wrong with telling them to take 3 to 6 of those a day. for a couple of months, and I'm sure it would do wonders just for the physical heart and its resilience, because a lot of people need that.
Doc, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, well, I mean,
So like,
there's just a few of us tonight, so if you got a question, folks, just go ahead and raise your hand or whatever and ask it. Go ahead.
okay, thank you. Just, like, so like a broken heart, but not like diagnosed with a physical heart problem, but a literal broken heart from when just makes me cry just to say a broken heart because it's there, it's real. So you would say that to take those two, for that?
Well, you could take one or the other. I don't know that you'd need to take them both at the same time. Instead of maybe say 4 of each a day, if you took them separately, maybe you take 2 and 2 if you wanted to get both products. But what you would do is remember the broken heart itself is really going to be seated into the convergence point of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be broadcasting into the physical heart all the emotions, because folks, we all know this, emotions are extremely powerful. And it's going to take the heart down. Well, okay, so let's say somebody with the kindness of their healing, deliverance ministry, whatever, discerns that. Well, one of the first things you've got to do is you've got to get rid of the circumstances that caused the broken heart through pinpoint ministry. Then you want to do the as if it never were thing to erase the memory. But then I would suggest for at least a couple of months, if not 3 months perhaps, something to actually nurture the physical heart's tissue, because the heart has been hammered. I mean, almost everything that comes our direction, folks, has some effect on the tissue of the heart itself. Now, what's really interesting is that our digestive system has the capacity to store certain memories. The actual heart muscle has the capacity to store memories. So does our brain, and to a smaller extent, even our muscles and tissues. So we are one memory just walking around. And it's filtered through our ears and vibrations and frequencies. And honestly, sometimes I walk around and wonder how my molecules keep from just flying out all over into space, except for that the Father holds everything together by the wonders of his word. You see what I'm saying? So, so when we think and almost hesitate to use the word holistic, because somebody's going to see this and they're going to go, oh, they're just really a bunch of New Agers, boiled over as Christians. Well, let me tell you, that is not the case. We're taking back what we have let the New Agers control in the way of mechanics for far, far too long. And I know a lot of them are upset about it because some of them are starting to show up with their little astral projecting stuff that they're doing into some people's homes. And some of them came out worse for the wear on that. So that's not a good thing. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna take control of this. But we've got to think of the whole person. The spirit is great. We want to get the soul cleaned up and firing on all 87 cylinders or whatever. But we also want the body to be strong. Now, one of the things I put on my little last minute note on Facebook, I'm not sure everybody gets them, but I said, listen in. We've got let's see, we've got about 12 folks on right now. And I know quite a number said that they would love to listen to this later on. So that's where I may need Mark at some point, Monique, to help me figure out how to load it into my YouTube channel, because I'm still clueless at this moment on that. But what do you do if your liver is compromised? Almost any of the foods that we eat today have been genetically modified if we're not really, really careful. The liver gets sluggish. One of the first things that it does is it starts throwing cholesterol out into the blood, hoping that we'll pass excessive cholesterol out through the kidneys and eventually through the urinary tract. And if people have veins and arteries that are a little bit brittle, it'll start sticking to the arterial walls. Well, then before long, we see people that need heart bypass surgery. Well, the liver has to be addressed at some point. And when somebody does a comprehensive program with me, one of the first things that I tell them to do is to go ahead and take detox tea of some sort, just to give the liver a little bit of a break. But there's a product that I use with my customers when they need it, and it's called CircuFlow. CircuFlow. I'm going to hold it up as best as I can. It's got a heart on it. It's from a company called Kroger Herb, Kroeger. You take 3 of these 3 times a day in between meals. There's 270 capsules, so you only need to do it for a month. And each time you take 3, you take some aloe vera gel and stir it into a little bit of juice and chug it down. Or see, Dean's got it. But you do that in between meals, and in between meals is defined as, let's say you eat breakfast at 8 in the morning, and then at noon you have lunch. Well, 10 o'clock would be a perfect time. Midpoint in the afternoon, maybe 2:30, and then maybe the last 3 at bedtime. Anybody over 50, and I think the bottle costs, Dean, what does it cost? Maybe $30, something like that. I mean, it's not like $200 or something like that. It's like $30 or 31 or 2, somewhere in that neighborhood. And you may look it up. Look it up on Amazon for me.
It's $23 on Amazon.
Okay, well, there you go. And then what are you going to put out? Maybe another 10 or 15 bucks if you go to Walmart and get their big rectangular jug of South Texas Rio Grande Valley juice that you pour an ounce into some other juice. And you do that 3 times a day. In a month, you've got every major vein and artery cleaned out in your body. So if you're over 50, you could tell anybody. If you're, say, in your late 40s, early 50s, and you're blessed to have your parents around, why couldn't mom and dad take that anyway? It's got hawthorn and vitamin C and a few other things in it. They're all very, non-problematic with most of the drugs that the doctors put people on these days anyway. And I can't tell you, and I don't even know that I know. And that's that. How many lives have really been saved because they just did that one thing? Now, I tell a story a few months ago, yearly, when you get older, you have Medicare and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't really, once you pay your deductible, you can go to the doctor everywhere for free if you've got the right form of Medicare. And so I went to my cardiologist, and there was something going on, and they wanted to check it. So they did a CT scan on me. And the doctor said, "Oh, everything's great." And he looks at me and he says, "Good grief, man, in a few months, you're going to be 70. How is it you have no plaquing anywhere in your body?" And he said, "I'm 48 and I'm already on a statin." Now that's my cardiologist. Okay. And I'm going, "Well, I know about these herbs, doc." "Oh no, I don't believe in those herbs." That's the, well, I said, "Well, but here's me and there's you." Go ahead, Rachel.
So the circular flow, is that for the liver or that's for the
No,
arteries?
That is going to clean out every major vein and artery in your body.
Cleaning out veins and arteries, cleans out the plaque.
The plaque, and the aloe vera
Okay.
then goes in behind it to heal any
And then
problems
the aloe
that there
vera
might be. And
heals
if
the
somebody
gaps.
maybe
Okay.
had a little problem with aloe vera, Standard Process has a product, and I'll say it and then spell it, called Cyruta Plus. CYRUTA plus. Has to have the plus because they have a Cyruta that's not, it does a different thing. If you took about 8 to 10 of those a day for a couple of months, not only is it a backdoor natural antibiotic, it actually has the effect of nurturing veins and arteries. So it would cost you a little more to do it that way. But like I had one of my boys, I have 4 boys. The twins are the middle kids. They just had their 47th birthday. And my son, Jason, he takes Cyruta Plus all the time. because he likes the way it makes him feel. His veins and arteries are, lowers his blood pressure eventually if he has any issues. And when he comes down with a cold, he just pops 10 a day, and that cold's gone in half the time. So they're just, natural things that are, standard process says that their stuff is low dose but high power. In other words, it has really big effects even with a small dose. And I don't have any reason to believe otherwise on that. So anybody that you love, anybody that, says, anybody that's got diabetes at all, they need to go through a bottle of CircuFlow about every year and a half, because it will completely keep them away from having to have things cut off their body. You know what I'm saying? That's how powerful this stuff is. Got so many testimonies that I could go into about what it's done for people that it's incredible, but I won't bore you with those tonight. Another thing that we always want to watch out for with the heart, and something of the many things that I have on my testing sheet, is that we always want to make sure that we have enough magnesium and potassium. Okay. Now, here's what's interesting. There's a lot of people, believe it or not, more than you would think, that I run into, that really do eat very well. But somehow they're still thinking they're going to get enough magnesium and potassium and other vital nutrients out of what it is that they do eat. I mean, they have their smoothie down to where they're like pro smoothie makers, and everything is cooked just right. And I don't doubt it, but what's left in the food anymore? That's the real issue. So,
Got a question.
Go ahead, Dean.
Which magnesium is the best?
Well, there's a bunch of them. You know that, right?
Yes, I know.
Okay, so if somebody were wanting to do something for the brain, you would take magnesium threonate. And I'm going to try to spell this, but it's like THROENATE, something like that, threonate. And you would just take however many milligrams you think you need. I think they're 250 or 500 milligram capsule. The one, excuse me, the one that I like is magnesium glycinate. Now, I'm not super sensitive to a lot of things, but when it comes to magnesium, if I'm in the same room with magnesium, it'll act like milk with magnesia on me. Now, any of you old timers know what milk with magnesia is? Okay. Well, guess what? I can take a whole bottle of glycinate and it doesn't do the same thing. Now, these are 500 milligram tablets, and I haven't had any issues with them. Of course, I can muscle test myself. Some days I need one, some days I need two. But that's a wonderful product. Most of the time, we don't need over 500 a day. And somebody would say, well, Dr. Rodich, what if you take too much of something? Well, is that possible? I mean, sure, theoretically. But if you don't have, and this is a key statement here, if you don't have kidney problems, and you take a few hundred milligrams more, pretty much anything within reason, more than you need, you're just going to eliminate it through the urinary tract. Now, if you've got kidney issues, that's when you really got to know what you're doing. Okay. Fortunately, I do not, other than I spent 4 hours today in the ER with a kidney stone. But that's something. Yeah. Well, to make a very long story short, I'm one of those unfortunate people that has the possibility of kidney stones a little more. I'm more susceptible to them than other people are. And so for 4 months, I was on a carnivore diet. And on the carnivore diet, I think what it did is got rid of a lot of the spiny protrusions. And
one day,
and who's ever talking in the background, let's see, I guess I can mute you. Okay. All of a sudden the stone started moving. So you say, well, Doc, you know everything that you know. How do you get a kidney stone? Folks, put 2 and 2 together. I live in the southernmost part of Alabama. Does anybody know what we drink here? It's not tequila. And and it's not Bushwhackers, although that's the most popular drink down here. It's good old Southern sweet tea that is so high in oxalates that if you leave it in the bottom of the glass, it'll form crystals on it. So that's how I got myself in trouble. Yes, Pamela.
Okay, so then the magnesium, the thornate, is for the brain, but what about the magnesium glycinate? Does that also help the brain?
I mean, all magnesium is going to help the brain to some extent, but the threonate was invented by, I think, a Japanese doctor, and how he got his formula set up in such a way that they figured out that it really did help the brain was incredible. But it does, it helps, like if you're wandering around a little bit and you're just slightly off, and maybe a little fuzzy, you might want to think a couple of threonates. There you go. Was it called New Roots? So that's one thing. Glycinate's just kind of,
Yeah.
I love glycinate because, like I said, a lot of the doctors early on, when I was just going to them because I didn't know what I knew, this is back 30 years ago, they'd say, oh, just take magnesium malate. It won't bother you at all. 45 minutes, there's the Dumb and Dumber rumble. You know what I'm saying? So if you haven't seen the movie Dumb and Dumber, then you have no clue what I'm talking about. But so, but yeah,
The magnesium, sorry, Doc, the magnesium threonate, I mean, they call it the clarity magnesium on here, and then it also says it's gentle on the stomach. So
It's
that's the
very gentle.
description that we have on this, yeah. And
absolutely.
we got it at the health food store. She says she gives it to her kid, and he's been doing so much better at school.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
it is a very expensive magnesium though. Like this little bottle was $50, so it's pricey.
it's probably maybe 30 here. There's
Well, that'd be the same if you do the conversion right.
oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think about that. I'm sorry. Now, if you know anybody that has a heart arrhythmia, we're just now really starting to learn about how the soul can broadcast right directly into the heart and cause all kinds of trouble. So that's not really where I'm going with this. So putting that aside, if we might for a moment, what are some things we can do with supplementation that could help us out there? Well, I test for this in my tests, but let's see if I can get this set up just right in front of my face. L-citrulline. Now, I don't always do it every day. I should be better at this, but these are 500 milligrams, I believe. No, 600 per pill. So I take two, 3 or 4 times a day. They create nitric oxide in the body. So everybody been seeing the commercials about super beets and all that kind of stuff, Well, this makes super beets look like little tweets. Okay. All right. Anybody, again, that's over 50 should at least be taking 2, if not 4 L-citrulline a day. It just does all kinds of wonderful things for guys, for gals. The big thing is just to remember to take it, because obviously at some point, if you're like me, I honestly, if I took all the nutrition that I really should every day because it's not in my food, I wouldn't even need to eat food. Maybe a little milk or something, and that's all. But we want to enjoy life. We want to be able to have a little food, but that's a really, really big one when it comes to that. Now, the other thing, and it's kind of works the same way, that I've read a couple of abstracts on, is using arginine and taurine, but you've got to take a lot of that, and the taurine can actually mess with your gut. So I could never build up enough taurine to get an anti-arrhythmia effect, but you need about 8 grams of, about 8 grams of taurine, which is 8,000 milligrams, and I think half of that of the arginine. But in essence, they pretty much break down to do the same thing or something very similar to the L-citrulline. Now, you say, well, when are we going to get into the spiritual part of that? Well, that's why a lot of us are working really, really hard, because we know that our physical heart has taken the brunt of a lot of things in life. And what I'm trying to do is just help everybody out. We've talked about a platform to be able to nurture the actual tissue. We've talked about a way to clean out veins and arteries. We've talked about a way to give nitric oxide that's very safe. I don't know of one person that said, oh, I felt all funny or anything from taking L-citrulline. I mean, there's just so many possibilities, you know, that we've put out there because we need our hearts to be strong. And like when I went to my last yearly doctor's test, I think my cholesterol was 1.2 high. Of course, at the time I was on the carnivore diet and I'm eating like, you know, quarter sticks of butter a day and stuff like that. So obviously it's going to be a little bit higher than normal. And so she said, I said, well, here's the thing, doc. I don't care unless my blood is so thick that my heart can't hardly pump it. I'm not even worried about cholesterol because my brain needs it to function, number one. Number two, if I don't have any plaquing, why are you worried about how high my cholesterol is, even if it's 50 or 100 points too high? So that's just like blood sugar. Now I'm much more personally aware of the heart function than I am the pancreatic function. But all they do is just check for the sugar levels in the blood. But there's 3 or 4 other different components that go into whether somebody really truly has diabetes. Now, one day we'll probably just do a whole show on that because there's certain nutrients that the worst I've ever been able to help anybody with is they were having to take shots and they were taking, I want to say the name of the product was maybe glucophage or something like that a couple of times a day. And all they had to, they didn't, and when they got done and we got them on a maintenance, all they were taking was one glucophage. They were able to drop the second one and they weren't having to have the shot anymore. Because even when doctors say that the pancreas can't be revitalized, they don't know about protomorphogen nutrition. So that rebuilds the organ. Well, that's what we talked about a little bit with the heart today. So now, just out of curiosity, and this may be, you know, like Dr. Ron says, throwing anybody under the bus, so I'm not going to pick anybody. But does anybody have a family recipe or anything that grandma or great grandpa or somebody used to do besides maybe taking a shot of whiskey or something that would revitalize their heart? Does anybody have anything that it's like a family recipe that you know of? Not really? Okay, well, there's your opportunity. So any questions? This would be a great time for some questions before I maybe, you know, I don't have a ton of stuff because I do want to stay topic specific, but, you know, we can certainly talk about things. You know, if you have any general questions, we've got a little bit of time left. So, you know, at least 15 minutes probably before we close it down. So if you have any questions that have just been eating away at you, maybe just in general, and, you know, somebody's watching in the future and your question may make a difference for their life. Wow. Don't tell me I did that good of a job. Come on now. Go ahead, Monique.
Just clarifying for supplements for a woman, is there anything that's related to watch out for within pregnancy or that can help through pregnancy?
Okay. How I would approach that is during energetic testing, I would check there's an overall reflex for ladies that men have an overall reflex too. With men, you only check then the second reflex, which is the prostate. With the ladies, we have to check the reflex for the ovaries and the uterus. There are several different companies that have organ-specific nutrition that if those show that you can match those up with that person. And I actually know of several ladies who could not carry a child that after about 6 months on that nutrition, they had several children after that. Not at the same time, of course, but, you know, just once they got whatever the problem was solved. The other way to do that would be to get, and let me see if I can find that. there is a new class of vitamins out called methylized or methylate. And here's one by Pure Therapore or something. And I'll see if I can put that up there. I don't know how good that's going to show because I've got white going against white. I don't know if you can see that or not. Maybe right there. Okay. Well, methylated vitamins supposedly are much more absorbable, but any of the standard processor biotics or probably Garden of Life vitamins are just by virtue of how they're made are probably going to be readily absorbed by the person's system. So my advice to somebody who was trying to have a child would be at least give yourself 3 to 6 months to get everything up to snuff, and then it would be safe to go ahead and go forward with the hope of conceiving a child. But the nutrients, I mean, I could tell you the name of them, from standard process, for instance, the overall one is called Simplex, Symplex. F is in female. You wouldn't know the number to take, but a safe number would be 3 or 4. Then the other two are protomorphogens, which means raw glandulars that come from animals. And it would be eutrophin, Utrophin PMG. Again, probably 3 or 4 of those a day. And then the other one is called OVEX, OVEX, P as in Paul, and about 3 or 4 of those a day. You would need to take all 3 of those at about 3 or 4 a day, and then be patient and give yourself 3 to 6 months, or whoever it is, speaking for a granddaughter or somebody, and just be patient. And the guys, like I have a friend that I was reacquainted with here just recently, who he said the only reason he's on planet Earth is that his chiropractor dad started taking standard processed nutrition because he couldn't carry a high enough count in order to have a child. So what the guys would take would be Simplex, Symplex, M is in male, probably, again, 3 or 4, but maybe the guy could get away with 5 or 6 a day. And then the other one would be Prost X, Prost is in Tom with a slash, and then X, and probably about 4 of those a day. And again, give about 3 to 6 months to let the vital nutrients do their job and get going. And with those numbers, that's pretty average from what I've seen over the last 30 years, because you don't need to take like 20 a day or something. Rachel?
So on that topic, I was wondering, with the frequency testing, can you detect pregnancy?
Well, maybe, but see, I'm safe when I know there's a reflex for something. There really isn't a pregnancy reflex. I mean, I don't know if you've seen those midwives that have some little thing they dangle over the stomach to see if whether it's a boy or girl. And if they do it right, it's either a boy or girl. Well, obviously the child is already in the womb. Well, how would something like that work, for instance? Well, because boys give off different frequencies than girls. And if you maybe ask the right questions, but I'm not really very adept at that part. When you start crossing over into the subjective, you could be correct, but then you could be wrong too.
Okay,
So-
one more question.
Sure.
So those vitamins that you were talking about taking like 3 to 6 months in advance, what if you're already conceived? Is it like too late to take them?
No, it's not. I would have to actually go to my manual and look up, but one of the things that I wouldn't do, and I got to be very careful with this because this could be on eventually on my YouTube channel and everything, is I would take the vitamins that your doctor says, but I wouldn't by classification, but I wouldn't take the ones they recommend. Now, does that kind of make sense? So in other words, if they said, take the horse pill multi, ladies, remember the big old horse pill ones? Okay. That's not wrong, but you need to take one that's actually made properly so that it'll do something for you. So for instance, I don't know if I can find it in my little grab box here. Probably not, because I've got too many on top, but from the same company of those methylated vitamins, I would get a methylated foliate instead of taking the foliate that the doctor said. Now, why?
I think I have that
I'm
already.
I've
That's
been
good.
in nutrition for 30 years. They've had 1 or 2 hours of nutrition, even if they've been a doctor for 30 years. So I would simply take one that I know is going to be very complementary to my body, not something that's squib made or somebody else. That's just me. That's my personal choice. And again, I'm not telling you to do that. That's just a recommendation. You can take one a day for, if that's what you want to do. So, all right. Any other questions about the heart, energy, anything else we've got going on?
I have something.
Sure, Dean, go ahead.
This is not on health.
Okay, go ahead.
I noticed on your profile, you happen to be friends with a Joshua Young. How do you know him?
Personally, I don't. It must be just somebody that I accepted as a Facebook friend.
That's interesting. He's used to be here on the Gulf Coast, and I think him and his wife Jody are over in just below Jacksonville. But they come from a ministry. You ever heard of John Paul Jackson?
Oh, sure. Who hasn't? I say that, but yeah, of course.
They were part of that ministry anyway. But he's one of your friends.
Okay.
I just found that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've got several people. I mean, like Michael Van Blyman's one of my friends, and different folks like that. But I mean, I've talked a little bit with him, but there's some of the folks that obviously on Facebook you don't really know personally. But I mean, like so many people know Terry Spencer or Braylon Newby or Dr. Ron Horner, and so they see you on a cast, and then they shoot you a friend request, and I usually go to their site and make sure there's nothing that I can see that looks real out of line, and if so, I just say yes. And that's usually the way I do it. I've had to eliminate a few over the years, but very few. I mean, most of the people are legit. So, it's always fun to meet new people. And, I never thought I'd have clients, in Germany and Israel and South Africa and all over the place either. But, look what the modern age and that we're sitting around. I mean, some of you I've met in person because, I was in Pinehurst, but, people that you've gotten to be, really pretty fairly good, close friends with that you never would have met any other way. And that's the positive side of all this technology. And I think that part of it is certainly wonderful. And, the fact that I can be just as accurate sitting in my little man cave, as we call it at the house, where I'm the one man show here, and as if you came from Maine and now you don't have to spend the money and come all the way down. And although we would love to show you our Gulf Coast, and I'm really leaning on Dr. Ron maybe at some point to use one of our convention centers for a super big conference down in Gulf Shores. That would be wonderful, because I think
that would be cool.
People would probably come from all over the region, I would think, because he and Adina have just some absolutely wonderful things, and they're in all the associated family with that. I mean, I just haven't met anybody that I don't like, that way. So it's just been wonderful.
Why don't you check into the Pensacola Civic Center?
Pensacola Civic Center, that would probably be a reasonable venue as well. And that from Pensacola all the way over here, I mean, it's, as the crow flies, it ain't very far. It's just that you don't go very fast on the roads around here.
It's less than 50 miles from Pensacola to your house.
Yeah, yeah, to my actual house. Yeah, I mean, I can be anywhere in Pensacola in an hour.
Yep.
Yeah, so absolutely. Rachel?
Okay, I have another question. It's not necessarily related to the heart. I was wondering about skeletal frequency. Do you have a plan to have a meeting on that topic, or do
Well,
you have any suggestions on improvement for that one?
Well, I'm still learning because on that one, because somebody is kind of cute because somebody asked me that earlier today and said, well, my skeletal frequency was only like a 6. What does that mean? I said, well, I'm using you as a guinea pig and I'm documenting it to find out what does that really mean? But okay, so you want to say, okay, well, where are we leaning toward? Okay, so hasn't everything that we've done since we started walking toward the goal of sonship stretched us way beyond anything that we thought we could ever be stretched? Well, this is one more of those things where at some point, even our electromagnetic field, which should affect the bones and the marrow and even the energies that flow through our bones, should be measurable. So the first idea that I felt like the Lord was leading me to is just to see, okay, if you're testing all these people, put a number down. There's not really any nutrition that I can match up with it. But if somebody's got a low frequency, maybe at some point we'll be able to go into some respect of the soul and find out that maybe there was a hidden nuptial that relates directly to knocking down people's energetic frequency. And if we find out which hidden nuptial it is, maybe we knock that out and all of a sudden, boom, it goes right back up. And who's to say, for instance, we know that chemical can be a reason, but who's to say that even diseases like leukemia don't have some root in the soul? Now, a medical doctor would have a conniption fit over that, but they don't know everything and we don't know everything. So my answer at this point is that I'm just kind of doing some testing on the side, nothing nefarious, just saying, hey, is there some kind of a direct link with this to somewhere else that we can get even better? Because that's that we're supposed to be asking out of the box questions almost on everything. You know, not just to ask out of the box questions, but just for the sake of it. But that's part of expanding and thinking, you know, like when I saw these people do the thing on the medallions and they were testing so low on my testing scale, I thought, well, Lord, you can show me how to do better than that. And he did. Only because I asked. Now, where it's going to go, I don't know. By the way, they won't be real expensive. We're still a few weeks away from making an announcement on that, but I have to just make sure that I'm actually going to be able to make these and have time to do all the other things that I'm doing before we go crazy with them. But I'm thinking that just the basic energy one is probably going to be $25 plus $5 shipping, which is very reasonable. That the guys could order the dark dog tags, and the ladies, they could, you know, you could tell me, hey, I want it clear, I want it blue, or I want it with sparkles or something. And I could probably, until I start having to make thousands of them, I could probably accommodate there. But the one thing that I may or may not have said, I don't recall, I found out that I can program them on my Rife machine. So if you gave me a list of several things you'd been dealing with most of your life, but I'd have to let it run a whole day on the Rife machine. Well, instead of 25, just because of the time it would take, they'd probably have to be 100, but they would be programmed with specific frequencies of things that you're dealing with. So that's kind of a next level thing. How effective is it going to be? I couldn't tell you that. I just know that I found out that I can program. So that's pretty interesting. Miss Sandra.
Hi, yes. I think I've 2 questions,
Sure.
but I think I missed the part where you said, was it the patch that you said you wanted to borrow from Dr. Ron, or I missed that part when you were talking about the medallions?
No, I mean, I'm not sure on that.
I missed that, so I probably thought that's what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a link with Dr. Ron on the medallions. I mean, I've made comments that, and he and I have talked quite a bit about it, that we're both kind of upset that the church has let the New Age take the mechanics of things over, and that we need to identify what's purely mechanical, and then with the fact that we operate and live and flow in the Holy Spirit, we're the ones that should be in charge of the quantum realms and things like that. I mean, I've discussed that with him personally. But what's your other question?
My other question is when someone has what they call white coat syndrome pertaining to the heart.
Yeah. Okay. Like when you freak out because you go to the doctor.
My dad is so bad. He is the calmest person every time, everywhere. But take him to the doctor and he just freaks out like he's gonna have a heart attack. So of course they give him blood thinner and all these crazy stuff.
Yeah. Well, ultimately we have to be honest, and we don't say some of the things that we say to hurt anybody's feelings or to be insensitive at all. But ultimately there's a fear factor there. We know that. Okay. Because even I may try, you've heard people talk about a love-hate relationship. I go to the doctor just because there's certain things that I've learned to discern out of their tests over the years, or when you have a kidney stone, and you want to make sure that's all it is, and that's all it was for me, so everything's cool. But the real problem that I have with them is the way that they approach certain things that are so foreign to the way they really should be approaching them. Like the cholesterol thing that I was talking about. The doctor completely dismissing herbs that I have documented that have cleaned out major veins and arteries, even restored skin on people because of circulation that I've seen with my own eyes, and they just dismiss it. So from that point of view, even my blood pressure most of the time would go up quite a bit when I would go to the doctor because I just didn't like being there. So I don't, maybe if it's like 200 over 100 or something, when it's normally like 105 over 65, that's a problem, I guess. But yeah, it's going to be fear-based. And finally, what I told myself was, I just don't care anymore. I'm just going to live however long the Lord wants me to anyway. Right, Rachel? So. And
so would you recommend the what did you say for the heart function for
okay, well,
arrhythmias?
Okay, so for the arrhythmias, one of the things that he could take would be probably the L-citrulline. He could start out kind of slow, and he could do two capsules twice a day, because you can take up to 8.
Okay.
And I've read all kinds of studies about where the safety threshold is. And most of the time when it's something like an amino acid, they don't really know where the safety threshold is. And when I say no, they'll say, well, tap out at 8,000 to be safe, but you could maybe take 50,000 and it still wouldn't do any good. But I mean, who'd want to take a half a bottle of pills of anything? I mean, so that would be silly. But so the safety on that would be about 8 a day, just to be safe.
Okay.
That's just like with potassium. I don't think I ever finished about the potassium, but this is a really good question, I think. If the recommended daily allowance by our own government on potassium is 4.6 grams, which is 4,600 milligrams, does anybody want to guess what maybe the average American diet or Canadian diet or wherever gets from their food, even if they eat really, really well? Would anybody venture raising
2?
that?
2?
Okay.
2?
That good try. Anybody else want to venture a guess? Well, I've been able to pinpoint that the average is between 800 and 1,200 milligrams a day, even if you eat perfectly. Well, what happens to the human physiology year after year, decade after decade, if you're 3,000 milligrams short of potassium every single day? High blood pressure, panic attacks, central nervous and autonomic nervous system problems. I mean, we don't even know. Now, one of the reasons that, and this is a little off topic, but I started suggesting, and some of you who've done my program, you know what I'm talking about, chlorine dioxide, which is what backpackers use to purify water when they're out on the trail, right? Well, I started, the Lord, every once in a while, he and I'll go out on my back porch and we'll have a little talk. And And I ask him questions, and then he mostly does the talking, which is good that I've learned to hear his voice. And I said, Lord, I'm missing something here. It's like there's some virus or something that's operating behind the scenes that just comes up and it's just, biting people, are nipping at their heels. And he said, you're right. I said, well, what is it? And I heard very, very clearly, herpes simplex. I said, what? And then I went on to discover, and this is something I share in my consultations, but if you had a old-timey grandma that laid a slobbery kiss on you when you were a baby, you probably have herpes. If she had it, you don't have to have any symptoms whatsoever, and you could still have it. Well, the chlorine dioxide, if you take the diluted version in the water, 8 ounces a day for 3 to 6 months, knocks most of it out. Go ahead, Dean.
I just found out recently that herpes, topically, if you put oil of oregano on it, over time, it'll destroy the herpes. I've had herpes since 75, and it comes and goes. And I did about an 8-day treatment of putting oregano oil on my chest where it was at, and it eventually went away.
Wonderful. Well, we all know that you can use like L-lysine helps a little bit, and what's that stuff, Carmax or something? Not Carmax, but Carmex or whatever they used to. You get an outbreak and put it on. But we found out about the chlorine dioxide because there was a missionary in Brazil who none of his people were getting COVID, even though they were ministering to people that had COVID, and they tried to determine what were they doing differently than everybody else, and it was that they were using chlorine dioxide to purify their water. So the way that the Lord challenged me is he said, well, they're doing it with muddy, dirty water. What would happen if you put the proper dosage according to directions into, say, a 32-ounce jug of either distilled or greatly purified water? What would happen? And lo and behold, it kills a lot of things. And hey, if you think that somebody somewhere isn't listening, I was just mentioning with my telephone sitting near me and my wife's telephone sitting near me. A couple days later, it shows up. I'm getting these abstracts from medical colleges fed into my phone about how these doctors are finding out, that research scientist doctors, that herpes could be the underlying disease of many other diseases. I didn't tell that to anybody. I was just talking to her, and yet it shows up on my phone. So you gotta love Big Brother, right? Go ahead, Pamela.
Yeah, okay. You know what I haven't been doing the chlorine dioxide thing faithfully every day, but I'm doing it, but it's just random, okay, because it's not that easy to do. But I notice when I do it that these parasites here, they crave sugar. They just like it's a fight. I mean, it's like I can't even control myself from having like a donut, because I'm working at this bistro, so we have all this unhealthy food. and I mean, but when I really drink the chlorine dioxide, that happens every day I mean, when I drink it, it's like increase that craving for sugar, and it's like it's out of my control. And so it's the weirdest thing. That's probably why I'm not taking it faithfully, because I don't want that fight.
Well, what I would say is this. There are some people that are really, really sensitive to things. Let's be honest. Now, in my practice, it's maybe, I don't know, 1 out of 1,000. I don't know. But people are going to react differently. One of the things that happens when you start killing anything is there could be a die-off effect. And when they start dying, and right now we just got through a full moon, and anybody that knows about parasites knows that they're the most active a week before and a week after. Well, the reason you do any parasite cleanse, and guess what? Chlorine dioxide kills viruses, bacteria, parasites, and fungus. Probably other things too. So if you can hang in there and somehow minimize those, you'll push through it, and then it won't be a problem anymore. It's just, but what do they call that die-off thing? Herkheimer effect or something. Sometimes your liver will spaz out a little bit, so to speak, and go, oh my goodness, so many things are dying. I don't know if I can handle it. Well, then that's where you need your couple cups of detox tea a day, and it helps the liver kind of get rid of things.
So what is the chlorine dioxide? Like, it's not just a tablet or a pill that you take?
Well, you have to be careful because, and I'm going to see if I can open this without hitting anything, because I thought I saw my bottles, and of course they're not handy. There
I
are
can grab ours.
Yeah, there are other things, if you wouldn't mind. There are other things that do the same thing, but you've got to be careful to get chlorine dioxide. Now, the one I use, which apparently I'm telling so many people about it that Amazon can't keep it in stock, is called Aquamira is the one I use. And Monique, I don't, you can show there's a part A and a part B, like A is an apple, B is in boy. And what you do is you put a certain number of, you get a little plastic cup. So you get a little plastic cup and you put, like, on the one I use, 7 drops of part A, then you put 7 drops of part B in on top. And then it kind of makes this air that smells like bleach, but it's not bleach. The chlorine part is similar, but dioxide makes it different than bleach. There you go. So there's an A and a B, and the directions will be on it. Well, then you take a glass jar, not a plastic jar, but a glass jar, and you put your 32 ounces of filtered water in there. And then you put the 14 drops that have now combined in there, put the lid on, shake it up, and then you drink. Now it's diluted, really diluted a lot. You drink 8 ounces a day of that solution. Okay. Now, let's say, mate, I can't taste it. My wife claims it smells a little bleachy to her or something. So the workaround for that is don't heat it in the microwave, because who knows what that'll do. But the workaround would be to get your little stainless steel pan out, measure 8 ounces out, heat it up, pour it into a glass, and put your cup of detox tea in there, add a half a stevia or something, swish it around, and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Get your detox tea and your chlorine dioxide treated water. Because I had one person one time ask me, well, if I drank 8 ounces of chlorine dioxide, won't it kill me? I said, yes, but that's not what I told you to do. I told you to drink 8 ounces of chlorine dioxide treated water. You know, the backpacker doesn't take a gallon jug of chlorine dioxide and drink it straight. He just puts a few drops in there, and then they wait a half an hour or an hour so it kills everything. Well, when it's purified water, you don't have to wait the half hour. So that's how that works. Go ahead, Monique.
Yeah, so I was just saying, in Canada, we get it from Pristine. It's out of Vancouver. And there are different kinds you can order. So the one that I have is for small, it says on the top, small volumes of water. So we just got a glass liter bottle just from the dollar store, and you fill that up. And this one is 5 drops of A and then 5 drops of B. You just hold it in the cap and wait 5 minutes. So it's easy. 5 drops, 5 drops, 5 minutes, and then you dump it into your liter of water and just let it, I just let it sit overnight. And then we add our DE to it at night. So then you're getting, it's 2 birds with 1 stone again, right? And it's
Awesome.
So that's how we're doing it. I also have a question kind of going back to the EMF that we were talking about. Rather than it being a pendant like that you wear as a necklace, because then your clothes, could you just put it in the pocket of your,
Yeah, I mean, that's
something like that? And
that's why I made these. They're about 2.5 inches. And I don't know if you can see the pretty little ceramic looking cross in the center, but this one is a 27, which is close to as powerful as I've ever made. You could set it under your pillow if you were it. Now, would it keep you awake? My wife claims they put her to sleep. With me, they keep me awake. So everybody's going to be a little different in how their body responds. But my goal is to have these so that you can maybe have one for the day for energy, and then one that maybe in the beginning, if it's small and you tell me, hey, I'm dealing with this, this, and this, I can probably know this stone will work, this stone, and then I'll make you one that's person specific. And but if I have to charge them, gosh, I mean, I have to put them on my Rife machine for a day or two in order to get them programmed. That's going to get really time consuming. But you know, at least in the beginning, for all the folks in Dr. Ron's ministry, we're going to try to get some really good stuff out there, a daytime one, a nighttime one. And then if you want to carry something around, because I believe that they will do something if they're within 6 feet of you. So that's how powerful.
And what effect then, if you're going back to the topic, what sort of effect would that have on the frequencies of the heart?
Okay, so I'm not going to say that I have figured all of that out yet, but my assumption is that the heart is responding to rogue frequencies most of the time, and that these should help eliminate some of the rogue frequencies. And I think, okay, you're going to see me get out of the picture for a minute because I did some testing day before yesterday and I came up with some percentages through muscle testing. So give me just a second and I'll read to you all what I believe that I found out. And so I'm going to need some testers to work with me, okay? And here's what I believe that the initial things show. I'm going to start at the bottom. Okay, you know we all have meridians that run up and down the body, okay? This will enhance the function of meridians by 30%. That's the testing showed. They should block electromagnetic fields by 60%. They should give you an overall energy boost of 55%. Now, somehow, and I don't have any proof of this, but this is what my testing is showing. It has the ability to speak to your cells in such a way that the nutrition that you do take will be absorbed, is what the understanding is, by an improvement of 65%. Now, we'll find that out through trials, but that's what the preliminary testing shows. That overall cellular function should improve by 35%. Now, here's one basically just for Dr. Ron's group and people that are engaging heaven in general. And we'll probably close unless there's other questions, which I'm happy to take. But we've discovered that the human heart, the physical location of the human heart, is the one convergence point of body, soul, and spirit. We still don't have a full understanding of what's able to flow back and forth between the three parts of our nature in the conversion point, okay? But we know that there's people that come to us, they're newly saved, they've had all kinds of traumas and issues. There's all kinds of negative energy going through that conversion point, probably affecting their spirit, even after they're saved, affecting the soul, affecting the body. The body affects the soul affects the body, and it's like, oh gosh, you know, our heads are just spinning. If my testing, and we're going to find that out, but if my testing turns out to be accurate, it can eliminate the static moving through the heart. In other words, somebody hasn't gotten to a certain deliverance level yet, okay? Are you with me? But it can reduce that by 90%. Now, that's what the testing showed. I didn't think about it. I don't use subjectivity when I do this. I simply do testing. So if somebody comes to you and they are a basket case and there's frequencies all over the place, but their heart is to get right with God, so it's going to take a little time and they're in a process, it could eliminate, let's say, the effects of what 3 different levels of Masonic influence would do. It could cut down the negative, the frequency part. And I'll let Pamela ask her question here in a second, but there's a difference between legality and a frequency. Is everybody with me on that? In other words, if the enemy has the legal right to do something, he has the legal right to do it. But when he's doing what he's doing, there is an energy factor that's given off. And if we can reduce that, at least in part, that is the hope. And I just asked the question. I didn't know if it would be anything. And it's saying that it can reduce that by 90%. So go ahead, Pamela.
Yeah, no, it's really not a question, it's a thought. It's like I'm in this place with the Lord and have been for a long time in the river of living water, in the waterfall from heaven, the throne room of heaven. But I believe that we have the river of life inside of us, okay? I believe that river of living water lives inside of us. It's just been polluted by all the chemicals, all the food, all the earth, right? And I believe that there's a tree of life inside of us as well. That the tree of life
Mhm.
is really in, that's how God made us, okay? And if we could learn how to tap in to that realm where the river and the river, I keep telling my body, you know, there's a tree of life is in here. And so I'm just calling the water in, the water, the river of living water, to come into all my, go into my organs and push out the stuff that's in the way of keeping them alive and giving them life. I mean, it's by faith, obviously, but I really believe there's something there because the Lord
No,
keeps taking me to scripture.
you're absolutely right. And the ultimate is that at some point we don't even need to eat earthly food, that we get our food from heaven.
Yeah.
So everything that you said is 100% right down the line. Unfortunately, not everybody is in a place where they can let that flow to the degree that is necessary, at least in the beginning. So most of what some of us are doing is trying to give them a little help along the way until they get to that point where, yeah, I mean, one of my favorite exercises to do is to just go sit in the river of life and say, Lord, let that water flow in me, through me, around me. Hit me with your fire, hit me with your glory. I want to engage it. I want to understand it. I want to appreciate how you do what you do. That's one of the greatest engagements. And so yeah, I mean, I'm in total agreement with you. It's just kind of like, what do we do until then? And I'm just, that's why some of us are trying to help people out because, folks, we're going to get people that have been involved in SRA from the time they were little babies. You don't get rid of that, at least right now, we're not getting rid of that stuff in 5 minutes. But if we can boost them a little with nutrition, help pinpoint, which we can do now with a lot of our testing, where all these negative spiritual attachments are, that's a really big deal. And it helps our counselors immensely. Sandra. Hang
Doc?
on.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
go. I call on Sandra, but that's okay. Hang on, Dean. I'll get to you in just a sec. Go ahead, Sandra.
Sandra can talk. Go ahead.
oh sorry. That's so true that Pamela was saying. Recently, a lot of things were coming my way, my way, and I don't let things pull me anymore. Every which way and all this stuff. So I know how to go back into Christ. And, just like you said, the river of water. Well, I know I'm doing it. I know when I'm doing it. I know when I get over, too many things are coming that I need to pull myself away. And Jesus actually said it because I was doing this thing. And he says, come into me, come inside. And so I know what it feels like, and I know the relief that happens. But we were in prayer with a friend last night, and this is what she saw. She says, when you do that, because we're in prayer, so this is how we relieve things, right? She said, when you did that, there was like a water flow that comes. She said, it's not water, but you flow into it. I just like you just fall back into a big cushion or comforter or something. And then she said, there was water flow which had shimmering sparkles. I'm like, I was so blessed. And there was like chimes. She says, I don't know what it is. It's like airy chimes. And it was musical. I usually see when I'm praying, like the angels taking my prayers and mixing them with, Revelations 8, mixing it with incense. And it just comes before the Lord as a sweet aroma. So when she said that, I was kind of seeing Revelations 8, but she says it's airy chimes And I think it was Mark that mentioned the tuning fork. So I was putting that all together. I was seeing it, but she was like, "There's such beautiful like frequency that was happening and releasing the essence of God." She was blown away too, and I'm like, "Whoa! I didn't know all of that was happening." But it lines up with what Pamela was saying.
Well, see, this is what I like to point out with people. Those are the kind of engagements that are life changing. And we all know that when you have those engagements, you can revisit those. So it's not just a one-time thing and one and done. No, I mean, we can go back
Right.
over and over again. The problem, if there's a problem, is that this is a journey. So electromagnetic impulses that have purpose and that are specifically aimed against those that are believers are in part of the 3D world that we live in. The goal is going to be that as we have experiences like that they'll just go right around us or through us and not even bother us. But we may not be there yet.
Right.
So if we're not there, there's nothing wrong, because I'm not saying voodoo with these, I mean, doing things like that. Basically these are just simple little rocks that are kind of semi-precious gemstones, but it can be programmed, and I pray over them.
Yeah. I
And
love that idea. I think that's a great idea.
and until we get something better, which is what we're working toward, because in a way, I kind of hope to be out of business at some point. I'm supposed to be retired now, but out of business at some point, because everybody's learned how to drink and eat and sleep and do everything out of heaven. But then at that point, we'll be glowing. It won't matter whether we're here or there. Now that's the goal. That's what we're pressing toward, but we may need a little help along the way. And that's what we're all still involved in, helping each other. Dee.
I'd be interested in being one of your testers.
Okay. Well, what you all can do is, you've got Messenger, and what we can do is just make sure. And I think I've got probably everybody's email that I see that's still left on, but if I don't, make sure I have your email, and I'll make, basically all I need in the beginning is that just a few bucks here and there just to cover my costs, because I've poured out a lot of money in this stuff. Just but then what you can do is, so what would I want people to report back to me with? Okay, maybe you feel a boost the first day, maybe you don't, but it's kind of hard to tell. But let's just say all of a sudden after 2 weeks you notice that after you eat lunch you're not tired anymore. Well, that would be kind of a big deal if you were always tired after lunch. Let's just say that you notice that your blood pressure after a month and a half is down.
Yeah.
Let's say, and what I'll do for everybody, because it was a smaller group, just don't tell everybody I'm going to do this, even though they're going to see it on the video eventually. It'll be too late. It'll be expired. Sorry, guys and gals. But what I'm going to do is make sure that you've got a daytime one and a nighttime one. Now, the nighttime one could also be used for, like, if maybe there's a real stressful situation, and it's going to be simple stuff. It's just, there's nothing, like I said, there's nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, okay, do people know what opal is? Do people know what jade is? We use pink crystals in the fish tank. They do some kind of water purification. So that's all we're talking about here. It's just that when they're put together in the right order for the right things, because there's energy coming from all positions, it is actually repositioned through the crystals, and then it helps our energy field not be so chaotic. That's all it's doing. That's all it's doing. There's no magic to it. There's no craziness to it. And if God gave us, everything, living and herbal and all that other kind of stuff, should be the same thing. Pamela, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, just because what you're doing is you're taking back what is rightfully God's and rightfully ours. It's like it's like the whole earth is groaning for the manifestations of the sons of God to rise up, right? To rise up and speak, earth, 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 come alive, spit out your prosperity, you know, because everything in the earth, there's still everything in the earth, what we have and what we need, but it's been polluted, it's been tried to be killed, right? But we as sons of God rise up and we walk on the land and we heal the soil with our feet and with the anointing that's in us. So we're taking it back. So it's nothing new age or anything like that. It's just
Amen.
you're taking it back, okay? That's what it's all about. We're
I gotta
taking
say
it
it.
back.
That's good preaching, sister. That's just real good preaching right there now. Now, to show you that we don't have to have every one of our ducks in a row, but we just have to be willing. When I shared earlier in the video cast that I ordered some things from a company and they used a little candy mold and they made this stuff that was supposed to be EMF blocking. And on my scale of testing, which is muscle testing, it's tested as 7. Well, most of the other stuff that I've tested was through the years has been a 7 or 8. So I told you, I watched these videos, got some ideas, really calmed myself down inside, started listening to the Holy Spirit. Now I've been doing this maybe 2 weeks now. How is this one a 27 on a scale of 0 to 10 when they're only making 5, 6, 7s, and 8s? And this is a 27 combined for everything that it does. I don't even know how it's a 27, but that's what it tests at. So most of them test between 19 and 23, especially the ladies ones because they're a little bit smaller. But that's a whole lot better than 7 or 8. And so don't be afraid to try things is my point, because the Lord can give you an idea. Like when I saw that, I thought, why can't I do that? Lord, I mean, I know about homeopathic things. I know how to combine vitamins and herbs. How's this any different? When all that stuff breaks down, it breaks down into frequencies anyway. Why don't we just start out with the frequencies and see what happens? Well, boom. All of a sudden I'm making these things and I don't have any idea other than as I'm looking at them, I'm going, well, that would be real nice on that side if there was an opal there. And then maybe if I put a little of that pixie dust on the left side. I know it sounds funny, but when they turn out to be that strong, it's like, oh my God. And Mark, I don't know if you got a chance to see this. This is one of the first ones I made. Only guys would probably wear this. The ladies would put it in their pocket. But to show you, my wife, Laura, she was giving me advice on jewelry. And I said, you realize I'm not making jewelry, right? I mean, they might look nice, some of them. Well, anyway, so I was able to make this one. I don't know if the glare's too much or not, but you can see all the little things in it. And to me, they just look cool. Now, like I said, I don't know that, my son Jason said, I want one that looks like Tony Stark, the big one right in the middle of the chest. And I said, well, I've got him, brother. I don't know if they'll glow, but I got them. But the other ones, Mark, and we'll go ahead and close down here in a minute. But since Laura got my attention, but for the ladies, I don't know if you can see that, but they're really pretty, and I've even got some in blue and in different things. But really, I'm trying to make them so that they do what they do, not just because they're pretty. If they happen to be pretty, great. And so, like I said, for everybody that was on tonight, we'll do one energy, and I've got materials coming that won't actually be in hand till Sunday. And so everybody that just, my email, and we'll kind of close out with this, is doc with a period, Rodich, ROD as in David, ICH, at gmail.com. So it's doc.rodich at gmail.com. You can go to my website, but there's none of that information. My website is docrodich with no period in between .com. So it's docrodich.com. But if you'll send me an email and just say, hey, this is Sandra, this is Rachel, whatever, I want to take advantage of that. Now what you can do, and I don't even know, it might be like just a few bucks, but then you can go to my website and go under the donation page and just type that amount in. and all I'm asking you to do is cover my costs, but I've got most of them made already. Guys, I don't know. You got a month before you're going to leave for Australia? Do they charge extra to
Yep.
send things to Canada?
Yes.
Yeah, we could probably have it shipped to Australia though.
For cheaper, yeah.
It'd be cheaper to send it. Well, maybe just wait until you get
Wait.
to Australia and then whatever
Yeah.
you think. I mean,
Okay.
we don't want to have somebody to pay like $150 tariff to get it something that is, a few
If we
bucks.
can just remove our prime minister, I think a lot of things would be resolved.
Yeah, well, we kind of have the same problem here, but that's a different day. But anyway, but kind of journal, because I know a lot of you have been doing some good things and your health is in really good shape and things are getting way, way better. But just see if there's any nuances or subtleties that you could write down, and then notice, okay, week 1, week 2, week 3. And the main thing you're looking for is a little bit more energy, but not bouncing off the wall energy, just stamina. Okay. And maybe a little bit more rest at night. And, just for the sake of those who are going to be seeing this on video at some point in the future, remember my book, Moving Towards Sonship, that's available both at lulu.com, LULU.com, and on Amazon, but not Kindle. You can just order it the way you order a baseball bat or something off of Amazon. And then again, the website is docrodich.com. And believe it or not, I answer all the emails myself. I'm a one-man show that way. Even when I'm on other people's podcasts, I still answer everybody that emails me. It's taking longer and longer, but that's still just a couple of days at the worst. So, everybody please be patient. So, well, any last minute things you just got to have an answer tonight, if I can even give one. This is your moment.
What's the name of that thing? EMT, not EMT.
You mean EMF, electromagnetic field?
Yes.
Oh, I don't have a name. I just call these energy medallions.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's my question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've just, but like I said, my wife said, if you're going to make those, you better make them so the ladies will wear them. And I said, yes, ma'am. And, so I obeyed. So I want everybody to know that. So
We could do a competition of what to call them.
Or the prettiest one.
yeah, you could. Yeah. Hey, yeah, I can throw that out to y'all if you can come up with but it's got to be like heaven associated. We don't want to take anything new age or whatever. It's got to be like something that the Holy Spirit says, hey. And if it's a catchy thing, then I'll throw in the puck for you. Well, blessings to everybody. Thank you so much for being on tonight. Next time will be on immunity for the holiday season, and that will be again the first Thursday evening of December at 7 p.m. Central. And blessings to you all, and take care.
Thanks,
Thank
Doc.
you very much.
Bye-bye.
That's you.
Bye.
Thanks, Doc.